Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here late on the evening of Sunday, September 21st, because the Toronto Blue Jays are officially headed back to the postseason. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter. And Jori, we knew this was coming for a while, but with the kind of way that it played out with them, having the opportunity and missing it, significant that they finally got it done. And, after what happened last year, incredible that we're kind of at this point where they are the first American League team to clinch a spot in the playoffs.
Yes, on Earth, Wind, and Fire night, the 21st night of September, getting groovy with it. The Jays certainly having a good time. I don't doubt it. With their first clinch in 2 years after obviously last year's, shall we say, debacle, to put it lightly. Blue Jays punched their ticket, and job's not done. You're still hunting, first of all, the division and, of course, the bye, which hopefully we'll be getting to in the week to come. But for now, nice to put that little X next to their name in the standings.
I think, don't quote me on this, not huge, the magic number kind of up in the air, but I believe one Blue Jays win would ensure that they have a bye past the wild card round. If they win the division, of course. Division is the bye at this point anyways, so just win the division and you'll be all right. They're up 4 games on the Yankees, or sorry, they're up 2 games on the Yankees, but the magic number is 4. So gotta finish it here in the next couple days. I think you kind of line it up. Obviously, earliest they can clinch the division is Wednesday, but realistically, maybe like Friday kind of seems like a time that it might happen. And given the little trade that happened amongst broadcasters last week, that would is an unfortunate time for that to come down.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Anyways, I guess, focusing on this, obviously, we talked about like just how incredible it is that they are at this point. And I think when you look back on this season, the way that or the spot that they were in entering the year, right? Like Vlad, they enter spring training, Vlad, no extension, past his deadline, whatever. And then, there was a lot of kind of uncertainty around the team. Obviously it still is the case. We think that Mark Shapiro and John Schneider are not extended. And, there's free agents in Bo, Bassett, Scherzer as well. Like there's kind of was a lot on the table. And for them to respond with the year that they've had and to get to this point where we're here talking about them as, the top team in the American League. And, we've obviously talked about it all season, but it's just been such a magical run. And glad that they were able to get it done here today so that, you don't have to kind of sweat it out going forward.
Yeah, I think that, like you kind of said, just the shock of it all almost, maybe is the way I'd put it.
Yeah.
Just really kind of so unexpected, Their playoff odds by Fangraphs to start the year were hovering around the 40% mark, which in some circles that kind of seemed almost a little high. Again, they won 74 games last year. This was a baseball team last year that was rife with injury, with discontent, if you recall those Bassett comments at one point towards the end of last year, and there was all the uncertainty about Vladdy, and obviously Bo missed so much time, and was he, were we witnessing the Chris Bryantification, as I so often called it, of him? And needless to say, the Blue Jays now are just days away, seems like, you think, from potentially winning their first division title since 2015. It's been a roller coaster 12 months, and it just kind of speaks to you can't predict baseball. And this Blue Jays team epitomizes that, because not only was this a team driven by some stars, but even more so by their 1 through 9, 1 through 13, 1 through 26 mentality.
I know, we're obviously here kind of later at night, so we don't want to spend too much time on reacting on this because we do kind of want to get to some other topics around the team here as we kind of head into the final week of the season. But I wonder, for you watching them kind of pop the champagne, have the celebration, they went like maybe a little bit harder than I was expecting. But was there kind of anything like from the celebration? Obviously, the John Schneider speech I thought was good. Any kind of thoughts or any takeaways for you from that celebration?
Of all the things you think I can take away, I think of the Vladdy, not even interview, but the reaction around it. He was just doused by everything, by champagne, by beer, by booze, by everything. And last year seemed like he took losing very hard. This was a guy that a couple years back, he was like, you've seen the trailer, now get ready for the movie. And the movie, needless to say, flopped like a DC movie circa 2019. Um,
You
this
hating
is
on
a guy
Aquaman
that
right now, or what?
this is a guy that's I mean, by all accounts, seems like he is in it to win it. And for him, I can't imagine that last year was any fun whatsoever. So for him to commit to the Jays at the beginning of this year when there was still a lot of uncertainty surrounding the team, and for him to once again prove that he is a guy capable of being an aircraft carrier, or at the very least being a best or second best player on a World Series contender. To me, the way that everyone was able to just kind of celebrate him and the way he just got absolutely obliterated by all the boos, I think that it just kind of speaks to the cohesiveness of this team. And there were a lot of comments, and Bo as well said something about the closest he's ever felt with
Yeah.
any ball club he's been a part of.
Yeah. And, for Vlad too, just back to him, like huge swing for him, right? Like he kind of had that big double that helped them in that inning before things kind of spiraled with the Dalton Varsho. Not a
Catch, no catch.
catch.
Yeah.
I mean, we can just call it a catch because that's pretty much what it was. But yeah, no, I think Vladdy obviously right in the middle of everything. And it's appropriate that he kind of holds that role because he is going to be that guy for a long, long time. And I'm sure if you're him, this is probably like the first of many champagne showers that he hopes to have as a member of the Blue Jays. So,
Yeah, they've
um,
got what? They've got
15 more years.
yeah, 15 more years, and at least this year he's got at least four more booked, ideally.
Yeah.
The other thing also, there was a comment from Buck Martinez where he kind of said this is the closest I've ever
Yeah.
seen a Blue Jays clubhouse, and you just know he's thinking of those 2015 teams and all the kind of stuff that reportedly was
You
was
tell me
kind of
that he
going on
wasn't
behind the
thinking about
scenes.
the 1992-93 teams when he said that.
Well, let's just say there were rumors at the time of the 2015 teams, but I digress.
Yeah, best part of the champagne celebration was actually John Schneider's son, just dousing John
Yeah, that
in
seemed like
booze.
it probably shouldn't have been on television. I feel like that someone might get in trouble
You
for
could
that.
see like because Schneider says he's probably too young to be doing this. It's like trying to save it, but hey, I don't know how far I want to go on that, but but certainly a funny moment, and I'm sure one that I believe it's Gunner is the name.
I think so. Was there anything, because I kind of gave my 2 cents. For you, did you hear anything, see anything that
No,
really
I
kind of flashed any either red lights or just in general that you kind of thought was significant?
No, I think you hit on all of it. I think we've known that this team is super close behind the scenes and for them to, kind of come out and we've heard all the quotes already, but I think that that's just the biggest takeaway is just like how much these guys enjoy playing together, how much they enjoy pretty much being together like every day. And then you can like see that they take it out onto the field with them. And I think the word selfless has been thrown around a lot recently. And I think that this first champagne shower really just kind of carried that over into that.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about it at length, like just how incredible the depth is, how incredible the camaraderie seems to be in the clubhouse and everything. And I think this is just chapter 140 of this season and win number 90. I mean, man, it's incredible that we've gotten to this point. I think George
It's
Springer's interviews were a little funny too.
And he
Obviously,
was tarps off
shirtless. Yeah,
immediately.
yeah.
That was funny. I was watching I was watching with my girlfriend, and immediately she goes, "Who's this guy that's got his shirt off already?" I was like, "Oh,
Hey, that's the World Series MVP. That's
he knows how to
that's
party. He
that's
knows
a
how to
guy who's
party."
done this a time or two before. But
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, we can get into the series a little bit unless you've got anything else on the clinch. I think, realistically, more to come, as we said. AL East is obviously the priority and clinching down that bye because you have guys that you need to get healthy. Chris Bassett, Anthony Santander, Bo Bichette, like these are the guys that you want to get in your lineup and ready to go for day one of the ALDS, not day one of the wild card, because nobody is going to be at 100% for that, especially the
No.
way that things have come down.
Yeah. No, let's get into the series because we recorded kind of after that Tampa series, and or towards the back half of it sort of thing.
I
And
think we recorded right before the offense shut down.
yes, which is basically what I'm getting into is should we address the offense, which obviously, quelled a lot of fears today. 8 runs is 8 runs. But before then, there was a stretch where I think they scored. I wish I had the numbers with me, but there was a period there where they were hitting like 105 over a 3 game stretch, and that was, right off the hop on the Friday. And then obviously Saturday didn't go much better.
Yeah, I mean it was what was it? 3 runs in 4 games
Yeah.
before today. So, certainly one of those things that the timing isn't ideal for it because it is like, right before you are going to begin the postseason. But as this team has shown us, they are nothing if not resilient.
Well, that was the word they
And
used, right?
yeah, and I mean, you look at what happened today, and they kind of come out and they have that nice little 3 run inning where, it's a squeeze bunt, it's running out a fielder's choice, like just kind of the little things, right? And they got back to who they were, which helps them come away with this win. And obviously, Springer steps up with the double, Vlad steps up with the double. Just kind of the more in line with the team that we've seen this season.
Totally, yeah. Like it just, I think, you know, we were looking at some of the post game reaction articles, and I think Mitch Bannon said it quite well, where it was kind of the amalgamation of this team's DNA. A win like today really kind of exhibits exactly what this Blue Jays team really has been about all year.
Yeah. And I mean, also, today, Trey Savage, second career start, not quite as electric as the first one.
Well, here's what I'll say, because to me, he was much better than the line indicated.
I thought he was okay. I didn't think he was great. I didn't think it was the best version of him that we've seen. And obviously, that's not an understatement, right? It was so it's 4 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, 2 Ks. I believe it was 8 whiffs or something like that. I mean, like we've watched a lot of Trey Savage starts this year, and I think this was a little bit of like kind of here's a taste of the big leagues, right? Like I think early in the game where he was working through innings and like getting outs, but there was a lot of, I think, some hard hit balls finding gloves early on. And I mean, who am I to say that that's not effective pitching? But I think you kind of see it catch up to him there later in the game. So I mean, not the best
Well,
from him.
well,
You
it
you
caught
want to
up to
see a little bit
him.
more swing and miss, right?
Yes, but at the same time, I look at, he gets robbed of at least one out with the Varsho stuff. That was him pitching, right? I believe
That
it
was,
was.
yeah, that was the last
And
hitter we
then there was
faced.
also like the squibber towards short that, it's just barely gets kind of, Barger kind of gets to it, but he runs in front of Jimenez, and that all becomes a dog's breakfast. And there was another one where it was like a little looper that fell in. Like there was a couple of really kind of squibby balls, it felt like to me, that even as the day progressed, the command I think was concerning. You don't want him issuing 3 walks. But he was getting squeezed on the zone a couple times. Heineman was turning around to the ump and was kind of
Well,
giving him.
Heineman wasn't helping a lot back
He
there today.
was he was well, but I think that a couple calls flip one way or the other. Or a couple balls don't find little gaps or don't find the one spot that they're gonna go that's gonna result in a hit. And to me, I think it's a very different outing. I look at again another play. It was obviously, Michael Garcia, I think it was the first hit he gave up. It was a screamer, mind you. But it was hit right to Barger, but Barger again, he kind of deflects off his foot, and again, he kind of makes a mess of it. And I think that, if that's Ernie Clement at third, that play gets made. So, to me, I just think that there was some hard hit balls, but I don't know that there were any damage balls, if you want to necessarily call it that.
Yeah, I think of a couple ones to the outfield, like the one that Schneider had to make a running grab on. Like I mean, it was, whatever, hard hit balls by Savant are defined as 95 miles per hour or more, and he gave up 11 of those. So, I
That's
mean,
fair.
like at the end of the day, it was
How
like,
many how many barrels though of the hard hit balls? Can we can
uh,
we can we find the barrel info? Because I'm sure that's there. But I wouldn't be surprised if despite the fact he had 11 hard hit balls, I bet you he had probably less than 5 barrels because to me, it felt a lot like a lot of those hard hit balls weren't, hard hit in the air necessarily or even at that. It didn't feel like they were, they were some screamers, right? But it didn't feel like he was getting totally chewed up, at least, in my estimation. And, maybe that is just, you're looking for the bright spots in a Trey Savage start. You never want to look at a young guy coming up and kind of be like, oh, what a bummer. This guy, didn't have the juice today. But to me, it felt like it was more of a hard hit than a barrel situation. And I don't know if you're able to find it or if you have found it, but
Tough to find. I don't know if you can find it like on for an individual game the date of, so it doesn't quite look like it. And like I mean, but at the end of the day, guy in his second career start, right? Like I'm not trying to say that he was bad. Like I think you're right that, because um he was through 4 innings of like or 3 innings without giving up a run, right? And it was scoreless. And he did a good job of I think like kind of commanding both sides of the plate. And it was just one of those things where when he did miss over, like the Royals made him pay. And that's just kind of, being a major league pitcher, right? So, um, I think, hey, you know what? This is a guy who just started. His second career game was a clincher to clinch the Blue Jays a spot in the postseason. So, at the end of the day, like he gave them 4 innings and gave them a chance to win. And you know what? If he gives you 4 innings and gives them a chance to win in the rest of his outings going forward, I think you would probably be pretty happy with that.
I just was able to find it here. This is just by my count, just based on the Savant like at bat results. So in the first inning, Bobby Witt Jr.'s first inning flyout. Uh, Carter Jensen, second inning flyout. Then we've got Bobby Witt, fifth inning single. I believe that was against him because he pitched into the fifth, right?
Yeah,
Um, and then I think that's it because in the seventh is a Vinny Pasquantino line out, but that's not you Savage. So I'm only counting three. So kind of he was getting drilled. There's there's a healthy bit of red here. Um, but Pasquantino fly out 95, but the XBA on it is like point 0.1. Like some of these flyouts, at least by the looks of it, not as dangerous as the exit velo or there's a Sal Perez ground out in here at 105. So to me, I don't know if that vindicates me. That might not even be an accurate assessment, but I did feel like he was better than 11 hard hit balls.
yeah. I mean, they like if you break down pitching to a certain extent, like you look at a guy like I don't know, Logan Webb. Like Logan Webb is a really, really good pitcher and he gets a ton of ground balls, right? And a lot of those ground balls are hard hit but directly into the ground, right? So, you're not going to be able to strike out nine every time out, especially against major league offenses. So I think for him, to kind of get through 4 innings the way that he did on 76 pitches, I mean, you know, happy with that. And you probably on the scale of like his first start and this start, I would figure, everything is kind of in between there.
This is probably on. You're probably seeing two sides of the tail of a Monte Carlo sort of simulation here.
Yes.
Think that's the math.
It's interesting though because it does take me to Max Scherzer's start in the first game of the series, and we don't have to, really relive that all that much. But getting 2 outs, 7 hits, 7 runs, 2 homers, they lose 20-1. It's a story of the series, right? Like where they kind of man, like they get out like just probably the worst start possible. It's their first chance, like really clinch, and then that happens. I mean, I think it's a part of the conversation right now. And, we kind of have like this whole pitching conversation to have where that happens to Scherzer, Bassett goes on the IL, and Barrios is in the bullpen. Where are you at with this rotation right now as we kind of go forward?
Yeah, the bullpen suddenly thins out. You kind of have your two, your Bieber and your Osman,
And then is
and
you Savage a
it
postseason starter for you?
it really right now feels like that's the case. I think that with Bassett on the IL. You're trying to get him healthy probably for the playoffs, so you figure, he was pitching through back tightness, right? Like he was saying it was getting kind of cranky even during that start where he gets pulled after five. It's a guy that he's 35. They were calling him on the broadcast, Grandpa Junior or whatever it was, if you remember. So to me, that's them positioning him to be like, you know what? Take a breather, get healthy, hit the IL. We'll call up a reliever, and you're just gonna get healthy for the division series. So that's one of your starters. And then the fact they're moving Barrios to the bullpen to me tells me that they don't intend to use him. And then it becomes kind of Scherzer versus Savage. Who do you want to use? And the question is, will they have enough innings left in Savage to use him? Or it's going to be a piggyback situation because you really can't afford to have Scherzer giving up 7 runs in a potentially pivotal playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's hard to say exactly what they're going to do, but it does feel a little bit like maybe you're going to see a piggyback situation. But you know, your guess is really as good as mine.
Well, I mean, we'll have way more like postseason conversations, and again, there's probably one more Max Scherzer start to be had to kind of try and get his feet under him a little bit. But right now I'm fine with him pitching in the postseason. But like I said to you over text the other day, I probably wouldn't want him pitching in like an elimination game, right? So if they are in the ALDS and you're down 0-2 going into game three, probably don't want him pitching that game three. If they're down 2-1, probably don't want him pitching that game four. So I think, it's kind of one of those things where they'd have to be flexible with him and also, kind of matchup dependent, right? Like we're still in a spot where we don't really know who it's going to be. It kind of seems like it's going to be the Yankees. And the Yankees obviously, hit him fairly hard the last time out. They obviously had kind of some tips on him, but if it's a really right-handed heavy lineup, then I would probably feel a little bit more comfortable with him than I would if it was a left-handed heavy one.
Is there any way you go maybe Bieber one, Scherzer game two, especially if you win game one with Bieber,
Yeah,
or even if you go Gosman one, and then Bieber
yeah.
three, whatever sort of thing. Is
I
that something you
was
think
I
that they'll
was kind of
explore?
thinking about that. I think it's an interesting like concept. I would kind of need to look at the schedule, right? Like if you can bring back your game one starter for game four, then and your game two starter for game five. Like if you only need the three for the DS, I would need to kind of look at the days in between on that on the schedule. Like if you could do that, then I think you're you try and do that because Bieber
Yeah,
and Gosman have been, kind of your two guys. But if you can't do that, then I would be intrigued by that. Like especially, with how good Gosman has been. Like if you whatever, whoever you want to pick, right? Like Bieber and Gosman both been good. Having like a first game three on the road could be a potential clincher, could be like a really pivotal game, right? Like game three is going to be really, really key no matter what happens in the ALDS. So, I certainly wouldn't hate a decision like that, but I would also need to consider what it would mean for game four and five, and also if you go up to nothing, what would it mean for the ALCS and who's starting that off and everything like that?
yeah. There'll be some decisions to be made, but I think there's gonna be some surprising decisions made. I think that's probably gonna end up a
I
given.
think so.
This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
What did you make of the Barrios thing? I think that's a really interesting conversation. And the thing too is they probably like had a semblance of an idea that Bassett was
Well, that's the
not
thing, and you
100% right.
flagged that too in the chat, which was really kind of weird. Was if you know that Bassett's about to hit the injured list, why shuffle him so quickly? Is this a case where you had the conversation with him and you're kind of like, well, if we've had the conversation with him, there's no sense in him moping around the dugout for the next
You can't
three
you can't put the
days.
toothpaste back in the tube.
Exactly. So it's really hard to say exactly why. I wonder what they do. Like, I wonder how much of Barrios we're gonna really see down the stretch here.
Well, the fact that we didn't see him on Saturday or Friday or today, like we didn't see him at all in this
Yeah,
series,
it's
right? Like
very strange.
especially if he's going to be a bullpen. Like we saw him up in the bullpen twice. Obviously,
Mhm.
seemed like today was more of like just kind of staying loose. It's gonna be like so fascinating. Like this, the decision overall, like just to cut him off at this point in the season, I thought was like kind of bold, especially, there have been quotes that like it's really important for him to make his 32 starts this year, and he's not going to be able to do that anymore. And I wonder if, once you clinch the AL East, if they kind of throw him a bone and are like, here's start number 31. But also, you need to figure out what he is in the bullpen, right? Like, how does this stuff play in relief? What does the slurve look like? Is he able to go about, warming up in the bullpen at a short moment's notice when he's been a starter for his entire career and hasn't come out of the bullpen since 2017?
It could be fascinating. I think it'll be really interesting to see how his stuff ultimately does play up, because I don't expect it to really play up very much. But you got to figure, if he's tossing 93, 94, maybe he gets up to 96, 97, and suddenly, his pitch mix is a little more compelling. Does he have that in the tank even? That's hard to say because so much of his game is more about like volume than power.
Yeah.
He's more of a pitcher than a thrower, which is great when his pitching is good, but I just don't really know if his stuff plays up. There's so many questions that are going to need to be answered on that front as well.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I mean, one thing that was kind of interesting to me is like you kind of have to wonder like what he's got in the tank, right? So um I'm just kind of pulling it up now. But one thing that I'm curious about is like what, this year when he's like reached back for his hardest fastball, how hard is it? And like his hardest fastballs on the year all came in March in his on opening day against the Orioles, and it was 95.9.
Yeah.
So, and he's been a different pitcher, I would say, for most of the second half, like maybe even a little bit before then. So if you're kind of looking for like what he's reaching back for right now, his fastest pitch since July 1st was also 95.6, but beyond that, he's only thrown two pitches over 95 since July 1st. So it's not like there's
It's not like there's 97 sitting somewhere.
yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't say so.
No.
If he went out there and pulled back like a 97 out of the pen, I would be pretty stunned. But it would be, certainly nice to see, I guess.
I don't know. I think for him, I'm not even sure if he's on the playoff roster. That's really my kind of take.
Yeah.
If you want to know the honest truth. But I think we'll get a good read on kind of him and his situation
In the
probably
next,
sooner than later.
I don't, we don't really have to get too deep into this, but like quickly, what do you think that means for his future?
I mean, he's got another year left on his deal.
Well, he has
Uh,
another year, but
the
if
opt
he
out,
opts
right?
out,
Yeah, the opt out. I mean, the contract is looking pretty underwater these days. You hope he's able to come back to form next year. You look at like an Eric Lauer. Last time he was in the big leagues, he was unplayable, and obviously came back and was a totally different pitcher. So maybe there's a mix in there. Maybe there's a pitch decision. Maybe there's a sequencing something in there for Barrios to become a different pitcher and become an effective pitcher. You look at like Matt Boyd isn't blowing guys doors off, but he still has found a way to be effective. George Springer looked like he was cooked, and obviously hitting and pitching are different. But guys come back from the dead. It's not unfathomable. But with him, you really got to figure this out because that opt out looms very large, and that contract looms very, very large.
yeah, I would assume, unless he comes out and wins the Cy Young next year, that he will be finishing that contract in the Blue Jays jersey through 2028. So that is three more seasons. And
Which
like
is,
there's certain value to a guy who eats innings the way that he does, but
yeah,
as
but
as we
not,
said earlier, it needs to be the version of Jose Barrios that we saw in the first half, where it was like an ERA. Well, it doesn't need to be an ERA below four, which it was, but an ERA around four if you're gonna kind of be this guy, right? Like you don't want
you
to
know,
the ERA in the first half was 3.75, and in the second half, it's been 4.81.
yeah. I mean, I look at like, I'm just trying to pull up the numbers here. You know, a guy like Jordan Lyles, a guy like Kyle Gibson. These guys continually got work.
I mean,
They
Charlie
were not
Morton.
being paid. They were not being paid $23 million dollars.
Yeah, and when you're paying a guy like that, you obviously want them to be a little bit more than just an inning eater who you can kind of throw out there every 5 days and hope that your offense is able to support. So we'll see how it goes. I think we'll learn what he's going to look like out of the bullpen in the coming days. I'm sure they want to know too. But obviously, the priority is still clinching the division, and they have, kind of this variety of guys that they are still turning to over him right now. And one of those guys is Eric Lauer, who was excellent again today. And I think the idea of him emerging as a reliable lefty postseason option is becoming a little bit more intriguing every time we see him put into these roles. And obviously Little was used in kind of a bigger spot today, coming in for Savage early, but Lauer in the eighth, clean inning. One thing before we go, Anthony Santander and the Buffalo Bisons wrapped up their season today. So I would imagine that Santander will be with the Blue Jays as they return to Toronto to play the Red Sox on Tuesday. I would assume that Joey Loperfido is optioned to to AAA where they're not playing.
Optioned to the great beyond.
Optioned to congrats, you get to hang out in the dugout as we go forward here. Um, Santander's rehab assignments, it went okay. I wouldn't say great. I think he had an
It had its
OPS.
moments.
He had an OPS over 800. He hit a ball 100 and almost 112 from the right side. He did pretty well against like changeups and curveballs and splitters and stuff like that, but struggled a little bit with the heaters. So we're at a spot. He's gonna have a week to do it against Major League pitching. I think.
Is he gonna get in the lineup? We gotta figure it, right?
I think especially the way that they have struggled against lefties here, getting his right-handed swing, and obviously Bo not in the lineup too. So getting his right-handed swing in, and I think the Red Sox series it's lined up to be Crochet, Bayo, and Giolito. So
You're
welcome back to
getting,
the big leagues here, Garrett
yeah, right. You're
Crochet.
getting you're getting at least one guy there. Not exactly, but it's gonna tell you a lot if he can hit him though.
Yeah, like if he comes out and hits a double off of Crochet, I think you're probably that would certainly
Yeah.
answer any questions you
Something
have.
tells me it's gonna be a tough time for him touching what is he throwing 99 these days? He's gotta be close to that.
Yeah, I think so. He's still bringing it. Which
He's
if you
still
told me
Garrett.
that at the beginning of the year, I would probably would not have believed you. But yeah, it's going to be intriguing. It's going to be so interesting to see how they kind of piece it together here in the last week. Santander, I mean, like yeah, you get him in there. I think you put him in, especially obviously the offense has the kind of bounce back outing today, but I think the potential impact that he can give you in the postseason. You put him in the lineup and you see what he's got, especially since worst case scenario now is that you are in the wild card game. But again, that would take like a severe collapse.
You know, uh, relatedly, sort of, um, there's gonna be a bit of a juggling act in terms of the DH spot. Obviously, you're gonna have Santander in the mix there. You're gonna have Springer in the mix there, and potentially you're gonna have Bo Bichette in the mix there. Uh, do you think the Jays could get a little crazy here and pull a bit of a, Travis d'Arnaud circa 20, like 2021, 22, and see a situation where Jimenez is the second baseman against lefties and the shortstop against righties?
And what is
And
who else is in there?
Bo flips back and forth as the shortstop and then plays some second base when it's just to protect him from having to face so many guys, sort of thing.
That would be one of the wildest things. I think if they did that,
I just feel like that's something that might actually be worth exploring.
um yeah, I mean I wouldn't hate it. It's one of those things like in football, this is like a really niche take, but like in football they have like left tackles, right tackles, left
Oh
guards,
yeah.
right guards, whatever. Like why don't they swap them based on which side of the field you're on, right? Like if because you're usually going to try and run to like the bigger side of the field, so you should have your better offensive lineman on the side of the line, or lot match them up with whoever the better pass rusher is. Like you want your best on best kind of thing. So like if you know the other
It's,
team's running out their defender on the one side, then you should put your best tackle on that side.
just similar idea.
Um,
I don't know. I just feel like they're gonna have to get creative because Bo is not gonna be fully healthy when he gets back. I don't know if you're gonna want him at shortstop, but then I don't know if you want to put Santander in left field, and then I don't know what you want to do
so
as far as Springer goes and how
yes,
all of those three can coexist. Like that's where I wonder about,
the
if they
the
can get freaky with it.
the conversations are like so complex, especially so let's say that Bo is only able to come back in DH and he's not able to play defense. So you're gonna put him in there as your DH because he's Bo Bichette. You want him in your lineup, right? What does that do for the rest the rest of the
Well,
lineup?
like
Because
Santander then becomes a pinch hitter. This
you
is moot
think
if Santander comes back and can't hit. But if he comes back and is hitting, then like those two can't coexist if Bo is not 100%. Even at that, like Jimenez has been extremely effective as a shortstop too. I'm not entirely sure I even would love the idea of moving Jimenez off of shortstop. You're trying to appease Bo by keeping him at short. It's a playoffs roll around, like, pal. You're trying to trot out your best squad no matter what. And I'm not sure that my best squad defensively has Bo Bichette at shortstop.
in the most recent episode of At the Letters with Ben Nicholson, Smith, and Arden Zwelling, Arden said that he thinks Jimenez is going to play every defensive inning at shortstop.
I think that's what should happen. And that probably means Bichette DHing. But I also think that it would be worth exploring him playing some second and kind of doing that thing where you kind of protect him and you try to keep him away from, in theory, from whatever, pull side hitter it is, right? I don't know if that's a feasible thing to do. It might be getting a little bit too kind of cute with it. But to me, it feels very obvious that your best defensive alignment includes Andres Gimenez at shortstop.
So let's just map it out real quick. I know we're way over the time that we said that we wanted to do, but this will be quick. Let's map out Bo Bichette DH. So you're going Vlad at first. Let's say Ernie at second, Jimenez at short, Barger at third, Kirk behind the plate, and then
Springer in left, Varsho in
Springer,
center,
and then
Lucas
it's
in right, probably.
Lucas and Schneider kind of
Lucas and Schna Well, then you no,
platooning.
well, no, you gotta because yeah, but they're platooning on opposite sides as like corner outfielders, right? Because Schneider's a left fielder.
Well, you just put Springer in
You
right then,
just
I
put
guess.
Springer in right, um, and then you're kind of working with the group on the bench is some combination of Heineman, obviously, and then Santander, and I don't even
IKF
know
probably stays in that
IKF
situation because
just
you want
because
the
of the
backup.
versatility.
Yep.
You need an outfielder. I mean, it's Miles
So
Straw
Straw,
probably, and you could probably add one more,
probably France then.
probably France, but it sounds like France
Because
might be even on the outside looking in. I mean,
well,
I don't even know if
I
you
would
want a backup
imagine
first baseman now because Santander becomes your de facto backup first baseman.
I would imagine that in the postseason they're going to go 12 pitchers, 14 hitters,
Yeah,
if
which
I had to
seems,
guess.
four starters, eight relievers, and then that kicks an extra guy over to the hitting side,
Yeah.
which gives you potentially France. Are we forgetting someone?
No, I have it up now. Like, I mean,
Well, you
Loperfido,
know what?
but
Actually, no, you know what? We've
just
already dedicated a spot,
Desan Brown.
right? We've already dedicated four outfield spots because we've got Lucas and Schneider.
Oh, right.
So we don't even have room for France.
Right. So we're gonna do like a full thing on this, but um yeah, so they'd be
This,
running so it just oh no, because it would um oh Bo is back. That's where it would
yeah,
mess it up. Yeah.
yeah. It
Yeah,
gets
so
it
you'd
gets
you'd
real
you
finicky. It gets real
so
finicky.
you'd have to pick between France and IKF, and I would assume that they would
It's
keep
IKF for
IKF.
the defensive acumen.
What about what about if you were to pick France over Lucas?
I don't think they do that. I think
I
that Lucas, to them, there's the defensive value of a good outfielder because they're similar hitting wise. I don't think that they would. I don't think that they would go, especially given that Lucas is a lefty.
I'm
I
just
don't
thinking
I
like
don't see
for
it.
the pinch hit scenario, like you're probably not pinch hitting Lucas for Santander
No,
frequently, or sorry, pinch hitting Lucas over Santander or whatever.
no.
If Schneider were to start in the outfield, and Lucas has been um
Since the second half, he's
second
cooled.
half has been tough for him. So yeah, I mean it'd be tough. I guess the first base thing you have Santander who could play first. You have Ernie who can play first, and I mean also if Vlad isn't playing first, then something has gone wrong. So it's that's some tough decisions to be made there on the roster side as
Yeah,
things
we'll
come
dig
forward.
into this later this week.
Yeah.
We'll have another one of these types of episodes, hopefully with some surprises to come, and we'll see. We'll see how this plays out.
You got any final thoughts on Santander? He's like, do you agree that they're definitely going to activate him
They're gonna
for
get him on the
Tuesday?
roster. They're gonna have to. They gotta give him a shot. They gotta give him
Yeah,
a shot.
yeah. It'll be get him in there on Tuesday. See how it goes. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us here tonight at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View pod. If you're listening along on the audio provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jory is at Jori Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BEB_pod. Thanks so much for listening.